Shwmae a chroeso I Sgwrs, podlediad Consortiwm Canolbarth y De. Yn y podlediad hwn byddwch chi'n clywed y trafodaethau diweddara am bob math o bethau addysg. Hello and welcome to Sgwrs, the Central South Consortium podcast. In this podcast we'll bring you the very latest discussions on all things education.
Shwmae pawb, hello everyone. My name is Lucy Donovan from Central South Consortium, and today we're going to discuss the Professional Enquiry Project and the process for NQT induction. I'm joined this morning by Hollie Lewis, an NQT from Stanwell School in the Vale of Glamorgan, and her induction mentor, Lauren Rees. So thank you both for joining us this morning. So I'm going to start, Hollie, with you. I'm going to ask, what did you choose to focus on for your first PEP, and what was the rationale behind your choice?
So I decided to focus on the use of incidental Welsh for my PEP 1 because I wanted to develop my own Welsh language skills, as I have a keen interest in learning languages. Lauren, my NQT mentor from day one, has spoken to me about the importance of using Welsh within the classroom, and an action within our SIP, our School Improvement Plan at Stanwell, is to develop the use of incidental Welsh within lessons. So I thought it would be a perfect opportunity to promote the use of Welsh around school and speak Cymraeg with pupils during lessons. My rationale behind this was to create an environment where Welsh becomes part of the natural part of the learning experience. Speaking Cymraeg was sometimes a challenge for me, as I am not a fluent Welsh speaker, and I wanted to explore how effective strategies could be used within the classroom to encourage pupils to speak incidental Cymraeg to increase pupil engagement.
Lovely, thank you so much for that. And can I ask, Hollie, did you roll this out with all your classes, or did you choose to focus on one class or one year group?
I did roll this out with all of my Key Stage 3 and 4 classes. Teaching across Key Stage 3 and 4 means I work with a diverse group of pupils with varying abilities in Cymraeg. And I found for some the language is easily picked up, while for others it's more of a challenge. I found that my Key Stage 3 pupils were so enthusiastic about using Welsh during lessons, especially since many of them have a solid foundation from primary school. And I wanted to build on this enthusiasm and rewarded pupils when they did use Cymraeg in my lessons. With my Key Stage 3 classes, I started by greeting pupils with Shwmae, hello, as they walked into my classroom. And I made sure I used simple phrases throughout the lesson, such as da iawn pawb, well done everyone, or sut wyt ti, how are you? I also encouraged my Key Stage 3 pupils to use Cymraeg when responding to the register, asking them to say ydw, yes, or absennol, absent. For my Key Stage 4 classes, the enthusiasm for speaking Cymraeg wasn't as strong. I think this was because pupils were more focused on preparing for exams and less eager to speak Cymraeg during lessons. However, I knew that the more my Key Stage 4 pupils were to use Welsh, the more comfortable they would become with it. So I started by asking all my Key Stage 4 pupils to write the date and the learning objective in Cymraeg in their books at the start of each lesson. It was a small task, but I think it was an important way to incorporate the language into their classroom routine gradually. I also teach a number of more able and talented pupils across Key Stage 3 and 4 who feel confident speaking Cymraeg during lessons. So it's important for me as their teacher to have the Welsh language skills to challenge these pupils. With my maths pupils, I wanted them to use Cymraeg when engaging in class discussions and not just for routine activities. So for these pupils, I asked them to say keywords discussed during the lesson, such as alaw, melody, and cordiau, chords in Cymraeg, rather than relying on English.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Holly. Really enjoyed hearing some of the strategies that you've put in place there. So we've got kind of entrance routines, register, praise, but also some subject-specific vocabulary and encouraging learners to use that subject-specific vocabulary in their lessons. Diolch for that. So we're also joined this morning by Lauren's Induction Mentor. So Lauren, I'm just wondering if I can bring you into this. Can you talk a little bit about the process of helping Holly to determine what she should focus her first PEP on, and how did it link to Holly's development priorities or the wider school priorities?
Yeah, so in our initial meetings together, we sat down and we discussed Holly's previous teaching experience, her career entry profile, where she thought her strengths and areas for development lied. Welsh was one of those things that came up, because obviously the NQTs fill out the Welsh self-assessment as well. So we decided on the 3 areas that Holly wanted to work on first, which included Welsh, her leadership skills, and then professional learning in Key Stage 3 music. With further discussion then, as Holly's already mentioned, she did demonstrate a really keen interest in developing her use of Welsh and the use of Welsh of the pupils in the classroom, in the corridors. So we just thought that that was the best PEP, and perhaps the one that she would get the very most out of, you know, in developing the pupils as well as her own practice. And as previously mentioned, it is in our SIP. We had a recent SN visit and Welsh came up in that. So we thought it was a really important one to address and develop in the classroom. So that's how we decided on Holly doing Welsh for her PEP 1.
Thank you so much, Lauren. So Holly, I really enjoyed your PEP video and hearing about how you have developed Cymraeg in your classroom. Can you talk to me a little bit about the research or professional learning you undertook to support you with this professional inquiry project?
I did a lot of research which focused on the importance and benefits of young people learning and speaking a second language. I read books by Dr. Emma Kell and Paul Dix, which were suggested by my NQT mentor Lauren, to help me reflect on my own teaching practice first of all. I then found an interesting article written by Estyn called Developing Pupils' Welsh Oracy Skills. And Catherine Hughes, who is a Welsh education consultant, states, incorporating Welsh into everyday classroom interactions doesn't just teach the language, it fosters a sense of belonging and pride in Welsh culture. And my key takeaways from this was that I think it highlights the significance in incorporating Welsh into lessons. And by using incidental Welsh, teachers not only introduce pupils to the language, but also helps them connect with the culture and the heritage of Wales. And I think this is important. My action plan then was to highlight the importance of creating a classroom environment where pupils are excited to use Cymraeg. And as a teacher working in a Welsh school, I should give pupils the opportunity to practice their Welsh oral skills in an environment where they feel comfortable speaking Welsh without pressure. To further develop my Welsh speaking skills, Lauren advised me to complete a CSC online Welsh Foundation course for CPD. This course was so easy to access and I found it really useful.
Oh, wonderful. Really glad to hear that. And I think it is really important that as schools in Wales, even if we are English medium schools, like in your case, that we are promoting Cymraeg with the learners to, as you say, foster that sense of belonging, in addition to obviously developing their Welsh language skills. So really appreciate your perspective on that, Hollie. Diolch. Lauren, I'm guessing that obviously as the NQT mentor, that you had regular NQT meetings with Hollie throughout this process. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you supported Hollie throughout the development of her Professional Enquiry Project on Cymraeg.
Yeah, so in the first few sessions, it was really about discussing the timeline. So Hollie was aware of how long she had to get the PEP done and the sort of the pit stops where I would like to see what had been done so far so I could provide feedback, and then the process to follow. So once she decided on the question that she was focusing on, what kind of research could she access, where could she get it from, I pointed her in the direction of members of staff who I know use Cymraeg Pob really well, so she can go and observe those, speak to the Welsh department, because our staff, they are incredible and they provide advice on phrases to use, help with pronunciation, things like that. So once we had focused on that, then Hollie went away, did her own research, either the readings that she did or the observations, and then in every one-to-one meeting we would have, then I would discuss with her, what have you done, what have you taken away from that, where are you going next with your PEP, and having just that continuous dialogue with her to make sure she was on track with things. If she needed any support with anything, I could provide her with that pointer in the right direction. So as Hollie mentioned, one of the things I did was to tell her about the asynchronous CSC courses, which I'm glad she found really helpful, and which I've done myself as well. I felt as the NQT mentor, if I'm encouraging my NQTs to pursue this Cymraeg Pob D, to be a role model for it myself. So I have been doing those courses. I also found through the Read, Watch, Listen playlist that you have provided for the NQTs, there's a Work Welsh course, part 1, part 2. So I have done that myself, and I then forwarded useful language to Hollie and my other NQTs to use in their everyday routine, in the classroom, in the community. So I also held a Welsh drop-down day for my PGC students, but I encouraged all of my NQTs to come. Hollie attended, and even took away an idea to use in her PEP for the future steps, if I remember correctly. Is it something to do with the Welsh
Scheme of work?
That's right.
Yeah.
So, she took something away from that and included that in her PEP, even though she was right at the very end of her PEP. She felt like she really needed to include that, which was fab to see. I also did formal observations and informal ones as well, and in all of those I commented on her use of Welsh and then gave her suggestions on how to further improve her use of Welsh. So for example, focusing on maybe 3 words or 3 phrases that she would then keep using until she was confident using them, they were embedded in her routine, and to then build on that with a further 3 words or phrases. And I know that's something that Hollie is continuing to do, even though her PEP has now finished. So she can continue her taith iaith.
Lovely, thank you so much. So Hollie, I'm going to come back to you. In terms of your PEP, one of the main areas is about reflecting on your practice and considering the impact it's had on your teaching, and of course the impact it's had on the learners. So let's start with the learners. What impact do you think the use of incidental Welsh and the strategies you put in place has had on your learners?
Would you like me to talk about the strategies I have included, Lucy?
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
So I created a Cymraeg help sheet that all pupils were able to use during lessons to encourage them to use incidental Cymraeg. This help sheet included key phrases that are relevant to the music classroom. I introduced a Key Stage 4 Welsh phrase of the day challenge. Each lesson I introduced a new Welsh phrase or sentence that pupils were encouraged to use. Phrases such as dwi'n hoffi perfformio, I like performing, and when pupils use these phrases during lessons, I awarded them class chart points. For my Key Stage 3 classes, I created a Welsh vocab box, which is now in all pupil booklets, to help pupils learn musical terms in Cymraeg. For example, words such as nodyn, notes, alaw, melody, and cordiau, chords. I asked pupils to write each word out in Cymraeg 4 times at the beginning of the lesson. I asked pupils to look at the word, then cover the word, write out the words, then check the word is correct. I did this to ensure pupils are learning the Welsh words correctly. And I also think it's a fun way to get pupils engaged with using Welsh. I also created a Welsh corner in my classroom and put up a Welsh display. This display has encouraged my pupils to use Welsh during lessons as key words are visible. This display is also helping my pupils extend their Welsh speaking skills, and pupils are copying down keywords and phrases from the display when completing appraising activities, which is fantastic. And I'm so pleased to see progress being made in their booklets because of this display.
Lovely. So really having a positive impact on the learners in terms of their use of incidental Welsh, but also subject-specific vocabulary. So that's really effective. Thank you, Hollie. Can I then talk a little bit about the impact more generally, specifically on your practice as well? How has this sort of informed your planning moving forward, or how has it informed your teaching as you went through the inquiry project?
I think these strategies have impacted my teaching practice as it has improved my Welsh language skills and has promoted bilingual teaching. Using incidental Welsh has also taught me the importance of trying new ideas and strategies within my classroom. By implementing these strategies, I think I have created a Welsh speaking environment that encourages active participation from my pupils. I've learned that for pupils to feel comfortable practicing Welsh, as their teacher, like Lauren said, I should be role modelling good Welsh during lessons to ensure pupils have consistent exposure of the language. My expectations for using incidental Welsh during my lessons must be clear and well established.
Lovely, thank you so much. Can I talk a little bit about the assets or evidence that you used as part of your inquiry? So what evidence or assets did you include in your PEP to enable you to evaluate the impact of changes in practice?
Alongside my baseline data, pupil voice, and feedback from my pupils, I also had invaluable support and advice given to me by my mentor, and I think that really did help me as a teacher and to have an impact on those changes and to evaluate the practice through that support.
Lovely, and it sounds like you also collaborated with the Welsh department and maybe other colleagues in school who are also using incidental Welsh and promoting Cymraeg in their classroom. Can I ask which descriptors did you map as part of your professional inquiry project?
So first of all, I looked at pedagogy. I role modelled the use of the Welsh language. I looked at pupil wellbeing and learning outcomes. I adapted teaching strategies, challenges and expectations. Looking at collaboration, I continue to seek support and advice from expert colleagues. I arranged expert colleague observations. Looking at professional learning, like I said, I attended the online CPT Welsh sessions. I also conducted research and wider reading. Looking at innovation, I analysed data to show the impact of pupil progress after my strategies were implemented. Leadership, I shared my data, resources, my research, and strategies with colleagues, and I managed a learning environment.
Oh, brilliant. So it sounds like you really have demonstrated progress against all 5 of the professional standards, and we're actually able to map quite a few of the descriptors as well through this inquiry project. Well done. Can I ask about next steps? Have you had a think about perhaps what are your next steps as you bring this inquiry project to a close?
I am going to continue to observe expert colleagues using incidental Cymraeg during lessons. I aim to observe 2 colleagues each half term to share ideas and develop my Welsh vocab. I plan to extend my CPD and complete the intermediate CSC Welsh language course. I want to also complete the advanced 1, 2 and 3 Welsh online courses through learnwelsh.cymru. These online courses are free for teachers to access and will focus on specific Welsh phrases and vocab teachers can use within the school environments. And I will receive a certificate and a resource pack via email after this training is complete. And the idea that I am most excited about following the training day that Lauren put on a few months ago, I have started to write a Year 7 Music Cymraeg scheme of work, focusing on Welsh folk music. My head of department has been really supportive with my ideas for this, and we are hoping to start this scheme of work with Year 7 in the summer term.
Oh, lovely. It sounds like you've got some really concrete actions moving forward to embed the Cymraeg even further, but also that sense of cynefin with the Welsh folk music. That sounds really exciting. Thank you, Hollie. Lauren, can I bring you in here again? Obviously, you have responsibility for ultimately approving the Professional Enquiry Project. Can you discuss the process of giving feedback and ultimately approving the project?
So the main thing I used in terms of providing feedback was the success criteria, and that became like my Bible for giving all advice and feedback. So as I mentioned earlier, we had discussions in every one-to-one meeting. So there was a lot of verbal feedback given, both during discussions and if Hollie had emailed me something to look at or to read. I also then asked for a first draft of the PEP, and for that was done in email, and then I emailed back all notes for improvements, changes, things like that. But again, it was all based on the success criteria, so I just went through that step by step. You know, has Hollie done this? Has she included that? Does she have assets? Has she included collaboration where something maybe was missing or not quite as robust as it could have been? I provided that feedback and she acted on it immediately. I also attended the moderation meeting put on by CSC, which I found hugely helpful because there were some things that I hadn't either known about or taken into consideration. So, for example, the triangulation of evidence. So thinking about not just baseline data, but and their own reflections, but also including a teacher observation with those comments. So it all marries up and it makes the reflections much easier for the NQTs then once they're on that impact section of their PEP. So once Hollie had acted on all the advice I'd given, she then uploaded it to the PLP. And I was able to look at it again, and then I was happy with the changes she had made based on my feedback so that I could approve it.
Lovely. And can I just ask, did you capture any feedback actually on the PLP?
Yes. So with every meeting that we have, I type up notes of minutes from our meetings and they go up on the PLP. So there is feedback either every week or every other week, but it's all there in the notes and it's highlighted as PEP discussion.
Lovely, thank you so much. So Hollie, I guess you're now starting your second PEP. Have you decided what you're going to focus on?
Yes, I've started my second PEP and I have decided to research the impact of using restorative approaches to build and maintain positive relationships with my pupils. I'm committed to ensuring pupils are learning and making progress in a calm and safe environment without interruptions. And I believe in order for all my pupils to thrive, they must feel happy within the classroom. So I've decided to look at restorative approaches.
Sounds really interesting, thank you. Hollie, is there any sort of advice that you would give to other NQTs who are undertaking their own professional inquiry projects?
I think it's really important to find a topic that you have a real interest in. Please do not be afraid to ask for help. And it's okay to try lots of different strategies before you find the ones that work for you and your pupils.
Lovely, that is great advice. You know, it's not an expectation that every single strategy you try will be fully successful either. I think it's absolutely fine to recognise that didn't necessarily work in my context with my learners, and I need to trial something else, or I need to perhaps amend or adapt my approach in light of what I'm noticing. So thank you for that, Hollie. Lauren, do you have any top tips for NQTs undertaking their first or their second PEP?
I do. So the first one is to really think about what I just mentioned, actually, the triangulation of evidence. So to really stop and think about getting some baseline data, learner voice before and after, making sure you're able to compare before your strategy and after your strategy. So what kind of things could you gather for that? And to use observations. It doesn't have to be your induction mentor. It could be your head of department, for example, but ask them to focus on whatever the topic your PEP is based on. Don't worry if your intervention doesn't quite pan out how you envisaged it. Sometimes I think they get to the end and think, oh, it hasn't had this super impact on the pupils, or it's had maybe a negative one. Don't worry. That's not what we're worried about. Sometimes they make for the most interesting PEPs and the one that you can use the most to reflect upon for your own practice and the pupil progress. And then finally, enjoy the process. Look at it as a way to continuously improve and develop your practice and progress your learners, and not as an extra task to do.
Lovely. Thank you both so much for that advice. Lauren, I particularly agree. I think, it's important for inquiry to also reveal and direct us in strategies that perhaps are not necessarily very effective, that we need to sort of stay clear of and focus instead on the ones that are the most impactful for our learners. So thank you for that. Thank you both for joining me today. I've thoroughly enjoyed hearing about the process, Hollie, and really enjoyed watching your PEP video, and best wishes to you as you continue induction.
Thank you very much, Lucy. Diolch.
Diolch am wrando ar y bennod hon o Sgwrs. Cofiwch ein dilyn ar Twitter a Facebook, tanysgrifio ein sianel YouTube, Ymuno yn cymunedau ar ein gwefan a darllen ein bwletin ysgolion wythnosol am y newyddion diweddaraf. Thanks for listening to this episode of Sgwrs. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, join our online communities via our website, and read our weekly school bulletin for the latest news. Hwyl am y tro. Bye for now.